Hello everybody and welcome to my review of One Piece chapter 1023 titled Two Peas in a Pod. So this is where two major fights get seriously underway. One actually heats up in the form of Sanji versus Queen. The other finally can begin with King versus Zoro, the highly anticipated showdown, which we come to find out a couple of things about King, which I'll get into. We've got a cool looking colour spread. You have Kaido, Big Mom in the background. Also a lot of characters. You have Bartholomew and Pudding in the middle. Law. You have Boa Hancock. You have Moria. You have Perona. You have Kuma. You also have Reiju and Ukiku, Yamato, Isaku, and Katakuri. You have Komurosaki, aka Hiyori, which I'm wondering if she's going to appear soon in Onigashima. I think she will. Let's go to the cover page with Vivi with a bunch of sparrows, and she's with Karu. And again, this cover page kind of reminds me of what's going on. It wasn't that long ago, I think it was a year ago, over a year ago, when Oda made the statement that we would be going back to the Reverie or going back to the outside of Wano to find out what happened with Vivi, Sabo, and Boa Hancock. Wonder if we're going to get to that before the end of the year. We're almost at the end of August, so who knows. But yeah, it's cool to see Vivi here. And last time we heard, something happened, but we didn't find out what. Through Garp talking to Shira and Hoshi. But hopefully we'll find out soon. But we're going to find out how Zoro stacks up against King in this chapter. So we start off with the two Calamities staring off against the two of the monster trio. And I think it was established, I think it's confirmed that it's Luffy, Zoro, Sanji now. There's no debate in terms of like stature. In terms of power scaling, you can make your debate, I suppose, with Jinbei and Sanji. Zoro obviously back in action. And Chopper brings up like, oh, the antidote really did heal him. You do know there's a side effect, so after the drug wears off, Zoro's going to feel an enormous side effect. So it could be worse than what he had after Thriller Bark, because he was really messed up after that. And you have one of the Beast Pirates trying to target Zoro. Out of nowhere, in comes Kowamatsu, and I like this because it's consistency with what we found out back in Ringo, with obviously, because Kowamatsu was there with Hiyori. Hiyori is the one that promised she would give Emna to Zoro in exchange for returning Shusui from the former sword of Ryuma. And we actually get a little more insight into that. But it's cool Kowamatsu was the one to take care of that father. And we actually get an interesting conversation between Hirogoro and Kowamatsu. Hirogoro's like, oh, make sure they do not interfere with his fight, which is good because they're taking a page from each of the fights with the Toby Robo and the Straw Hats. They were 1v1. We did get interference with some of them, but ultimately it ended in a 1v1. I guess technically you could consider Black Maria versus Robin the technically only 1v1 without any interference from others once that fight got started. But yeah, hopefully these two fights follow that same route. It's cool that Hirogoro's the one. Make sure do not interfere with them. Just look at their expressions. Like, we're only getting in the way. Speaking of expressions, Marco's in a world of his own, and we actually get some more dialogue about King and the race he's related to, and we actually get the clarification because he mentioned about there's a certain clan that burst into flames that live upon the top, or used to live at the top of the red line. Immediately people assume that it was Merajo because that's the only thing that's at the top of the red line. And this actually triggers a flashback with Marco and Whitebeard, and it's prime Newgate. So this is way back in the day. Back in the distant past, there was a god's land that was up there. So I'm guessing what happened was, if that's where Merajo is right now, Tenryubito actually overtook that land that King was from. But then this kind of distracts Marco, and actually one of the Beast Pirates actually nail him. It doesn't do any damage, because then you have Izo there catching him, so that's pretty cool. And then Marco kind of responds like nonchalantly, like, "Oh, I knew you'd be there, so it's fine." And it would make sense if it's a godlike race because of the wings that King have. The Calamity is like, "Oh, that hardly did any damage to us at all." So Queen open fires, and both Zoro and Sanji dodge. And again, it's like Queen has those like pacifistas type beings. And then this is where we get insights to Sanji's about to put on the raid suit. We don't see it in this chapter, but we know he's about to. We knew this was going to happen anyway. Zoro's like, what's wrong? And Sanji's like, no, it's my second time using the raid suit. Which technically it's his third, because actually fourth if you consider the fact that twice, two of those were actually short-lived. One of them was a complete gag. But the first time he used it was against page 1. The second time was to spy on Nami and Robin when he was in the bathhouse. The third time was when he saved Momonosuke, and now it would be a fourth time if Sanji uses the raids. I guess technically it means in a serious 1v1 that he's using the raids. And Zoro's like, you're going to slow me down. And Sanji's like, I said it's nothing. Obviously Sanji's very uncomfortable wearing that, but like I said multiple times before, he's going to have to get that character development and get over that, and probably use that to get a power boost on his own, hopefully. Because there was a lot of hype about Sanji. Either way, King attacks and then Zoro blocks the attack when King was about to attack Sanji. And then Zoro's like, you owe me one. And then Queen is about to fire on Zoro, and then Sanji's the one that blocks that attack with Diablo Jumper. Sanji throws it back right at Zoro's like, now we're even. So now it could seriously be 1v1s between the two. I remember all of Judge's brats are enhanced, obviously enhanced humans, the bodies are enhanced so that they can take a lot more damage. So obviously Sanji's can't, because obviously he's a full. Queen says like, oh, you must be an augmentation, right, because you burst into flames. And then Sanji's like, no, I'm not, I'm just a regular human. Queen's like, no, because that's not the case. It's not like a Lunarian, which immediately that grabs the attention of King, so I'm guessing that's the name of the race that can burst into flames that King's from. Sanji spins around, cooking it up. It's beasts, sea beasts is my specialty. Queen, actually, I'll show you how devastating my cybernetic enhancements can be. Now, this is what hypes me up, because this is going to be cool for Sanji if he ever comes to this, because my enhancements are so advanced that even Vegapunk can't match them, which is awesome, because this is going to boost Sanji if he gets past Queen, which he should. We'll see once he puts on the raid suit. And then Zoro attacks King. King blocks it. It's like, and Zoro's like, don't get distracted. King actually punches Zoro though. And then before King actually punches Zoro, Zoro notices something about King's blade. King is not a swordsman. He just has a sword. We should have assumed this from the previous two fights involving the Toby Robo. So yeah, that just makes sense. He punches Zoro. So Zoro's about to go get serious too, and I can't afford to lose here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if Zoro can last before the antidote that Chopper gave him wears out, or if the antidote wears out before this fight's over with, and Zoro has to dig down way deep to beat King. I feel that's ultimately what's going to happen. But then we get more dialogue between Hyogoro and Kawamatsu about when Hiyori offered Emna to that man. I didn't protest too hard because it was destiny, it's fate, because he may be a foreign pirate, but he reminds me of the former daimyo of Ringo, which we know is Ushimaru Shimasuki, and finally we kind of get some connections between the two. Now a lot of people have stated that Ushimaru is the father of Zoro, the late father of Zoro. We still don't know about that, but it's like the sword handling is identical. So they're like two pieces of the puzzle. There's the title drop right there. And then we find out more about Ryuma and his fate with Zoro and his connection. So Ushimaru-sama was a fantastic swordsman, a direct descendant of the god of the blade, Shimasuki Ryuma. So that makes the encounter even more epic. And what Zoro said, like he wants to visit Ryuma's grave once the battle in Onigashima is resolved and everything gets back to normal. Before he leaves Wano, we'll get that. Okay? But then this is where we found out more insights about how Ryuma was in the past. Like Ryuma, after all, Ryuma was a one-eyed samurai, which is right around what Zoro is, which I found that so ironic. Like Zoro is the reincarnation of Ryuma, pretty much. And now we know there's a connection between Ushimaru, but we don't know what it is exactly. But we know the sword handling is completely identical. It may have something to do with Koshiro. He may be the one that learned under the former daimyo of Ringo. We still don't know a whole lot about that. So that's interesting, we're getting that. But we go on to where the other fights are taking place. Like all three calamities highlighted, and for the first time we see Jack in his hybrid form. Shout out to Inuyasha for putting up a fight against Jack in his hybrid form. Because right now, technically speaking, and by the way, he's in his base form, he goes into his Sulong form. So that's to give you a prime example of how strong Inuyasha is. Jack, we don't know what he's capable of. He was taken down a bit by both Inuyasha and Nekomamushi when he was in the Sulong form. They go back and forth with dialogue about what happened with Raizo and Zo. Then Inuyasha just picks up hybrid form Jack like it's nothing, just throws him out of one One, the platform outside. Inuyasha's like, do we still have the right to claim to be Odin's samurai? And then Jack's like, you're in your Sulong form, because we find out there's a hole in the roof where Jack was thrown. So that was quick thinking. So I don't know if, and that was because of Ajra Doji and his attack, because he got sent flying, I guess. It left the hole through the roof, the moon shining in, which I said in my previous chapter, the moon will play a factor if with the Minx fights here. See, in Inuyasha going to Sulong form, we go outside, which I also stated, and then we see that Nekomamushi is in his Sulong form. Interestingly enough, that Wanda and Carrot are awake again, so they could play a role. But I said the moon's full, so they're outside, and now Nekomamushi's in his Sulong form. So Perospera's in trouble unless the rest of the Big Mom Pirates show up finally, because we still don't know where they're at right now. But Nekomamushi looks menacing in his Sulong form. This is the last moon you'll ever see. Again, and Wanda as well. They should be able to go in Sulong form unless they choose not to. But yeah, I just hope they just don't sit on the sidelines, because Carrot deserves something at least. She wanted to get revenge for what happened with Pedro. It would make more sense for Carrot to be the one to have a hand in Perospera's defeat. We go over to where Fukurakuju and Raizo are going at it. Fukurakuju has been taking damage, so is Raizo, because he's throwing shurikens. This exchange in dialogue is foreshadowing what we find out by the end of this chapter. Raizo's like, Wano itself will shape Momonosuke's growth. How true that statement was by the end of this chapter. So we won't let you take that away. It cuts to Tokage Port. So Shinobu did grant Momonosuke's request and decided to make him into adult. He's now 28 years old, with 2 years older than Hiyori right now. There's going to be a reunion now. Maybe on Onigashima, for sure. Shinobu did it, so we don't know what the side effects are going to be. But we know, according to Shinobu, this should be permanent. I'm hoping it is, because Momonosuke can't pull that jumping into Nami and Robin's cleavage shit anymore, because he's not a child anymore. So that's the only good thing to come out of this. I hope Momonosuke isn't the one to get the final blow on Kaido, because that would just piss everybody off. Just because he's not trained, even though he's an adult. But then again, his Devil Fruit was kind of hyped up by Cypher Paul a couple of chapters ago. So Luffy's like, Momo, we're going to take back Wano, so let's go. So they're finally ready to make their way up. Like, I finally get Momonosuke in his identical to Kaido. But the question is, what kind of abilities does he have? But obviously the most important parts to me are what we got with King and Zoro. The slight connections we got with Zoro and Ushimaru Shimotsuki, and what we found out now about King and his race, apparently known as the Lunarians. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, it's just cool to see that Zoro and King are finally duking it out. Zoro is about to go all out. Again, maybe Emin's going to become a Black Blade before the end of Wano, and Sanji's going to get that power up since he's about to put on the raid suit and finally get serious with Queen. The only hybrid form left that we have not seen is pretty much King's at this point. You now have Queen's hybrid form revealed, and now from this chapter we have Jack's hybrid form, which I hope it doesn't turn out to be a complete joke. But so yeah, this was a great chapter. Let me know what you guys think down below. That's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Like the review if you did it. Thumbs up, I appreciate that. Subscribe channel for more One Piece. Catch you guys later. Thanks, guys.